And start recording. Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Shea and welcome to another episode of Habitat Now. It is an honor to have you join me as we continue doing these Zooms from live from Royal Oak, well, currently in Bluefield Hills, but since we've been doing these talks since May of 2020, and I'm grateful to have Mary Van Cline join us today to talk about the Documenta Project she's been working on for so long and have a little dialogue about the future of the project. So I'm going to start real quick by taking over your screens and going through a little bit of housekeeping, talking about the upcoming international. As I got, hey, Carrie, there's you. As I mentioned, we have been doing these Zooms every Saturday. There's a couple of Zooms, we don't do them live anymore. We do pre-recorded ones, but check your inbox every Saturday for a glass touch, as I say. The Sharing Breath show by Leah Wingfield and Stephen Clements is the live is coming to a close, but we're going to have some of the work in the gallery for you to see during the international. NGG continues. I'm really excited to continue. Not Grandma's Glass. I've had a lot of compliments on it from a lot of institutions and museums who are gazing into the glass world, have never seen it before, and realize how important the future of glass art is on top of what we do here at Habitat. So the International is coming up, and it starts June 4th for the first event, and it goes to the 7th, which is our trip down to Henry Ford. The invitation's on the tiny URL you see in front of you. If you haven't seen it by now, email me. I'll send you one. The invitations are coming in. People RSVPing. And artists are coming in with Gas in Town, Michigan Glass Project, ACG visiting. It's going to be exciting. The auction's coming together. I'm actually working on finalizing that now. So it's going to be some great pieces for sale at auction as well. So enough of that. I want to welcome Mary. Join me right now and say hi to everybody, please. Mary, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Thank you guys for taking your Saturday morning or afternoon, depending upon where you are, to join us for this live Zoom with Mr. Glass, Aaron Shea, who's been a very vocal supporter of the Documenta Project from the very beginning. So, hi, Aaron.
Great to have you, Mary. It's an honor to have you. This has been a while, up and coming for a while, so I'm grateful to go and talk about this. I have a Q&A I'm going to be doing with Mary, and if you have questions, please jump in, because this is more of an interaction than it is an overall talk. So, Mary, we want to thank you for doing this project. I know it was a labor of love, as we put it in the business, where you really sacrificed your time and money to make these portraits of people we know and love in our community. And I know this project was, like I said, labor of love. So tell me a little bit of how the project came together. What was the original idea you had in your head?
So in 2016, I went to SOFA specifically to ask our community what they thought about us getting some kind of portraits together of our global, international, glass community. I walked the SOFA floor, a little bit like in Jerry Maguire, and I ran into, I went through all the booths and everything, and by the end of that day, after talking to probably over 100 artists and collectors, they started coming up to me on the second day and referring to me as the Annie Leibovitz of the contemporary glass movement, and said, go, go, go. So I got the thumbs up, and I promised to come back and the following year. So I went to work. In 2017, I started, for any of you guys who don't know my own personal work, I'm known for introducing in hundreds of different ways photographs into glass, but I've never taken pictures of people. And that was very much of a learning process. And so I went to photograph the people that I've known the longest and felt the most comfortable in getting my chops together, and for the life of me, having people talk back to me while I'm photographing. So I flew up to Dan Daly's studio and photographed him. His whole family was there for 3 days. And he set up he got his photographer to set up his studio, and he was great. We talked endlessly about the ins and outs of the complications of doing something like this. And so that was really the true beginning. Is Dan I've known since 1977, and Linda and I are the same age and almost share a birthday. But the thing that was most valuable is his insight. So I started that year in 2017 with 5 photo shoots, which was absolutely insane. When I mean 5 photo shoots, that means that I flew to all these different locations with a camera, including my personal black and white Hasselblad, which is 120 roll film for black and white film. This is Dan's photograph, and that's Linda's. If you could, you'll probably see these later, but this is actually some of the people behind the scenes. In 2017 also, when I got to SOFA that fall, they gave me a booth that was right across from the Corning Museum of Glass traveling hot shop. And I set up these life-size, these are just the proofs. They were never this small. They were life-size prints, some 7 feet tall. And Todd in the background there is one of the, there's so many people behind the scenes, but he's the major person who helped me get my technical act together, because I'm a film photographer and he's a digital guy. And so the other person who you are going to see is a person named Kat Hartley, who was also a major person behind the scenes and helped me get all this together. So
Mary, let me jump in here and ask you the next question then, since it's relevant to what you're talking about. How many people have been photographed, would you say?
Well, I was trying to figure that out. So I think of the 5.
Lost you there, Mary, for a second. Hopefully you'll come back. Come on back, Mary. Shake it. Shake the computer. Shake the computer. Well, we'll dabble while she fixes our computer stuff, because it seems like it has a little bit of a glitch on her end. The show was shown at the Tacoma Museum for 2 years, and is part of their permanent collection, which is very interesting. And these are the full-size shots she was talking about that she has in the actual collection. I'm not sure how many. I think there's like maybe 13 full-size prints. And part of the idea of it is she has these works in the institution, but now they're no longer on display. So are they possible? Is the possibility exists to loan them to another museum? Who knows what the options are? We'll talk about that more if Mary comes back on the talk. You can see people gazing at their own portraits, which is kind of fun. And it was put on display during the opening of the Rebecca and Jack Benaroya wing, which opened at the same time as these things were added. I have personally not been to that display, but I really want to go. It looks pretty incredible back there. So hopefully someday in the near future, I'll be able to pass my way that way. But it was well attended, and you'll see some of these pictures later in the talk that are on the wall of each individual, which are from the community, both on the buyer side and the artist side. And it was a lot of fun to be photographed by Mary. I'm sure many of you did that and got to dress up in your own funny ways, or had props, or I had my top hat on, because why not? It was a lot of fun to see and explore. But here's the entire wall they had at the museum, which was up for 2 years. So hopefully Mary will come back to this talk and we can keep going naturally. So one thing I want to mention is, I didn't know this, but the prints are available for purchase. and she has different buying ways to acquire the prints from the collection to raise funds for the project. You have, we'll talk about it at the end, but there's different size portraits and a very special camera. Mary, is that you? Are you back by chance?
Well, I hope so.
There you are.
I'm like down on my property in about an hour south of Seattle. It's rural.
Gotcha. We
So
were just talking about the display at Tacoma.
perfect. Jump in if I, fade out again. Let me, while I still have you, let me get, so the first 2000 project went from the very beginning of 2000, so a full 3 years. In 2017, I went to Dan Daly's studio. I photographed Cappy Thompson, Jenny Ruffner, and Becky Benaroya, the 7-foot image that you saw at the entrance to the Benaroya wing at the Tacoma Art Museum. I went to Palm Springs in Miami, and in the fall, I went to SOFA. SOFA upstairs gave me this meeting room that free, along with the exhibit that you just saw in the nonprofit booth of the large 7-foot print images. And that same year, Aaron gave me the back 100-foot wall of the Habatat booth, which I put together a 100-foot roll of a lot of the portraits. And at first I thought it was kind of weird because it was facing the bathrooms, but actually everyone has to go to the bathroom, and more people saw that than almost anything else, and then found me in the meeting room. I scheduled every 45 minutes and another person, poor toots. She had to wait, and there was a line out there at the second day when people started to find me upstairs. The second day, SOFA put signs to find me up in the meeting room. So it was, over 3 days, I photographed as many people as I could. And when there was a lull, I would run down to the Habatat booth and grab an artist or a collector. And thankfully, they didn't kick me out of their booth. So I filled up all of the slots. I probably had 60 different 45-minute slots. You asked me how many different people. Well, some of the photo shoots have more than one person in them, so it was a little hard to count them. But I think at last count, I have over 300 artists and collectors. And of each of those different people, I have hundreds of shots, mostly due to the large scale, the largest megabyte camera that exists in the world. It's called the Phase 1. It's a Danish camera. It is shocking. The digital images, the files can be blown up to the size of a building. I did that so that I could push the project into the future as far as possible. So after speaking with an archivist at the Smithsonian, they suggested that I shoot film simultaneously because that's a lot more stable than digital files, which I truly believe. So every time I shot a person, I had 2 cameras running, my Hasselblad set up on a tripod, and what we called the rocket ship, the largest. Now it wasn't large in scale, it was large in file size. So it shot pictures so quickly that it was almost like a movie. So sometimes I have like 200 images of one person during their individual photo shoot. So
how many photo shoots were there, you said?
Well, 7. In 2017, I did 5. I flew to all these places and realized, I can't do that. It's crazy. So I put the word out and said, you know what, if you want to be photographed, you're going to have to come to SOFA. So I started working on that angle. And believe it or not, I had an even bigger, and then I also got some serious help, because before it was just me and the guy that you hire that brings the Phase 1, because it's such a complicated system that it needs to have a caretaker manage the files as they come in. And I just have it set up on a with a laptop and do a sort of a point and shoot. And there, Dan Daly brought high school drafting table to the photo studio and his sketchbook. And that started the idea down the road for the photo shoot that I did in Seattle, where people brought their iconic totems, per se, of how they wanted to present their portrait. And it was probably one of the funnest. It was 4 days long. It was at Olympic Color Rods, Deborah Moore. And it was hilarious how hard the artist worked for their images in that photo shoot. So of all of those 7 photo shoots, Dick Marcus brought his dog. I mean, there's a lot of.
I see he got dressed up.
He very much, he got drugged. He was the one who drugged Fritz Streisbach, who you'll see, because I tried to photograph Fritz 3 different ways. Dick Weiss was very determined to bring his girlfriend's. She knitted that for him. I can't even imagine. But, these are some of the Seattle photo shoots. By the way, the Seattle photo shoot was November of 2019, right before the pandemic. Dorothy Sachs. Oh, I forgot. That's that's 8 photo shoots. I photographed Dorothy Sachs and Jamie Carpenter. He flew in specifically for me to photograph. So did Dorothy. She's a strong supporter of this project early on. And so that's 8 photo shoots. There you go. I've stopped. But
gotcha. So let me throw in a question here. So I was talking about the opening at the Tacoma Museum. Can you tell us a little about that?
The Benaroya collection is renowned, and specifically for its glass collection, they have so many, supported so many artists. And in, what was it, 2019 or 2020? Anyways, they built an addition onto the Tacoma Art Museum, which is a little bit like the Sachs Pavilion, the DeYoung Museum, that George Sachs collection. And they donated their entire collection to the Tacoma Art Museum. And the inaugural opening, I had the entry. The curator at the time gave me the entry, and those were the images that you saw at the very beginning of the crowd moving past the portraits on paper as you walked into the Benaroya wing. There's Fritz. If you notice, he's got his stuffed alligator peeking out from his wrist. And I am thrilled to say, because Fritz was, of course, mine and so many others' very, very first glass teacher at Penland, my friend Jenny. She set up her own personal stage set. These are what people have brought to their own shoot, hauled it in, and we had so much fun. Do we need to say who these people are? This was, of course, Harlan and Olivia Fisher, and again, extremely supportive. I had to spend hours harassing people on the phone, talking through how to make this happen. And there's like a circle of people behind the scenes that helped me brainstorm. And they were specifically one of them that helped me figure out how in the world James Mongrain. It was a 80-degree day in Seattle when he showed up in this. So, but since he's from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, isn't he, Aaron? I think. Well, regardless. And there's Jamie Carpenter. He's, can't say enough. So one of my favorite black and white portraits. There's so many these portraits that are stoic, and all these people, so we don't need to say the names, I don't think. Let me see. Then let me get back to the timeline to answer your question. So in 2018, after doing the 5 photo shoots into Flora and Joey, and they, by myself, I did these photo shoots with just the photo assistant that did not participate in helping. I finally reached into my past and got a friend that I've known for 40 years who actually does know something, and is a very talented photographer herself. She did all of the lighting. She came on board and actually came with me in 2018 to SOFA, which gave me an actual photo booth at the entrance. You had to walk past us to get into SOFA in 2018. I figured they were going to do that because after putting me up in the rafters in 2017 and having all these collectors get lost up there for hours trying to figure out how to get back down or up or whatever, they figured it'd be safer that somebody might get locked into the Navy piers overnight. So they put me right at the entrance. So you had to walk past me. And Donna came on board and handled all of the lighting, and just a true professional. And the project went into hyperspeed because I needed help. She also came to the 4-day Seattle photo shoot in 2019, and it made a huge difference. And the photograph of Dale Chihuly that is very dramatic with a black background, that's actually not a black background. That's just her specific lighting. I wanted to do something special for Dale, of course. He drove in to the actual photo studio and came, and I had him for maybe 10 minutes. I tried to get him to sit down. He wasn't having any of it. He said, take the picture, and we went to work. So he's has been very nice to the project, and I feel like we got a fantastic image of him. We're currently working on the life-size color portrait on archival watercolor paper for the Tacoma Art Museum of Dale Chihuly's portrait that you saw earlier. So we're very happy about that. These portraits have all been gifted to the museum, and there is, the money has been raised to pay for it, to pay the printer who you saw, who's an extremely talented, he manipulates the file. He's the one who told me to go get the rocket ship camera, because the highest, most expensive, top-notch Nikon or camera or Canon camera does not have a big enough digital file basis for what I was trying to do. I was shocked, but he's just that knowledgeable. So we did go with the phase 1. It's an $85,000 digital camera. So nobody buys it, they just rent it. And they send out the technician along with it, as I mentioned before, but they just cache the files, so nothing's lost along the way. Any more questions, Aaron? You're muted.
Sorry about that. So the Tacoma Museum had a display up. It's now down. And the point of this
It was up for 2 years.
2 years, right? And now it's down. And so the point of the conversation we can kind of get into now is, what is the future of the project? You have this incredible collection of digital files of historic and film. And the idea is, you've had it in the museum, you have the files. What would be the next phase? And so you've talked about, people have mentioned to me, possibly creating a book with what you have, right? And that is a possibility, though it requires funding. Correct? Mary, do I got you still? Or are you chipping out again? It's like you might be glitching out again. Perfect timing, of course. So the idea of the book is a good one. It probably would need to be funded by an individual institution, such as a museum or I don't know, a group of some sort to find the funds to create that book.
What about a publisher?
A publisher is a great idea, Steve. You mentioned
Like
Schiffer.
Schaefer, the one who published Ferd's book.
Yeah, I mean that would be a
I think
great.
they would be monstrously interested in this, you know.
So the first year, so Steve, you're right on the nail with that. The first year that I exhibited the large portraits, Peter,
Maybe it was a Peter Bremers or a Peter Hora or a Peter Borkovics.
No, it's Peter from the publisher.
Oh, Peter for the publisher. Gotcha.
Schiffer.
So we got some more technical problems on Mary's side. Hope we can get. Thanks for being here, Carrie. Mary, I need you to log out and log back in again. You're killing me.
About
There you go.
the grandson of the
Pardon me, guys, while I try to figure out what's going on. Let's see if I can stop her video. Maybe it would speed her up. But I'd love to hear what she has to say about Schiffer Publishing, that's for sure. I always talk to Mary about like different artists, how to get them involved in the project. I know it's a big overhead for bringing the camera out and photographing people on the highest level. But is that always necessary? You know, that's something to think about as the project grows. There's a lot of artists that didn't get included. There's people who take their own photo, but you know, that's up to Mary to decide because it is her project entirely. I would love to see a book. You know, I think Mary wanted the portraits to be maybe at the National Portrait Gallery. I was going to ask her if she comes back about.
I'm here.
There you are, Mary. Do you think that the what were you saying about Schiffer?
The grandson of the Schiffer publishing empire did approach me in 2017 when they had a booth of their own art books at SOFA. And I haven't talked to him since because I was way too busy photographing. As you can see, this took pretty much full time. I stopped making artwork and did this literally full time. So I think I was possessed. But I felt this overwhelming, once I started it, to, capture the portraits of as many people as possible. And of course, there's always going to be people that you miss, and that just happened. But I was fortunate to, I did my best. So the project was shut down at the end of 2019 due to the pandemic. And so, I stopped photographing, of course, just like the rest of the world. Everybody just sort of stopped in mid-action. So
Steve's question is quite relevant then. Could we?
Yes, it is relevant. I think it,
there's not only that, there's a lot of art book publishers that would absolutely go crazy for a project like this. I mean, the number of people that you have photographed in this it's extraordinary.
Well, let me give you a little bit. Leslie and Jack Kavanaugh are one of, I would call them the strongest supporters of, there's so many. I mean, this was I've been doing glass for 45 years. I was beyond shocked at the support that I received, beyond shocked from our community of how many people. I mean, at one point during one of the SOFA booths, I tried to put the names of the supporters on a list, and I kept getting the lettering smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It was impossible to fit everybody on. Everybody at some point gave funding to keep the project going. I mean, pretty much everybody. So the Leslie and Jack and
so back to the point, Mary, let's talk about the book publishers. Let's talk about
so there does require even when you do have book publishing, there does require funding as So it should be backed by museum. I early on approached both the Smithsonian, the National Portrait Gallery, and I worked with the archivist at the Smithsonian, the Renwick, as well as the opposing side, the Corning Museum. So of course, both institutions are quite interested. That's never, ever been the problem. There's a lot of interest in the archives of the images. That's certainly not the problem. The problem is getting all of these images completely, like the roll film. I have in a bank vault of some very important people, like even Chihuly, of undeveloped black and white roll film, dozens and dozens and dozens of undeveloped film. And then the files have to be managed in such a way so that the project can be handed over to an institution. I suppose I didn't realize how much photo editing this project would require, but it's not to the point where it could be handed over, but it is to the point where it could be published. That's completely different. I do believe an institution along with a publisher is the way to go. So Steve, thank you for that. And to anybody that you would know that could, I suppose, contact Erin in terms of, I'm a little harder to contact at this point, but if anybody does want to email me, my email address is mary@maryvancline.com. Now, that particular image of Mary Schaefer took 200 attempts to get that scarf that she brought to the photo shoot to look like one of her pieces. So, I mean, we did have some enormous fun. And there's Michael Taylor, of course, that's his family. And,
do you think the pieces at the Tacoma could be loaned out to another institution?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
That could be a great thing
You
to
know,
talk
like you
about.
said, compared to the project, that's only a handful. It's really only a handful. I think
it's another avenue though, right? I would imagine so.
Yes. Now, to believe it or not, that's the Museum of Glass Hot Shop, Ben Cobb and company. They brought, of course, their own props, like everybody at the Myrna Paley and Sheldon were huge supporters of the project too. Miami, I flew there specifically to photograph them. The printing of the life-size images are, these people, Nancy Mee and Dennis Evans, showed up like this. Can you believe it? They walked the door like this. I mean, how can you, of course, I think they must have taken their hats off to fit in the car. But anyways, the printing of the images is not as bad as you would think. Framing, of course, is a deal, but all of this requires a donor attached to a specific museum.
With time going by, Mary, you know, there might be another opportunity if you're interested. I know it's a lot to manage, but you have a lot of people who support you in this project outside of institutions that could add to the package for the institution like you're talking about. And I think, I know it's something you wouldn't manage, and maybe I can help you with this, is creating a GoFundMe for those supporting the project to get hands on deck to help you, to help do the design, to help transfer the film, to help do all the things you're talking about, which would take the project to the next level. If I know you wouldn't want to run the GoFundMe yourself, but would that be something you're interested in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing for me is I was smart enough after the first year to know that, you know what, even though I'm the one that's pointing the camera at these people, that's what I'm good at. The rest of it is very time consuming and cannot be done by a single human being. And so I did start asking for help. And even for a GoFundMe, I would not be able to manage that myself, and would love if somebody would take it on and just go for it. You know, I could assist in any way possible. The actual managing of a GoFundMe is a bit overwhelming for me at the time because, as I mentioned before, it's important for me to recognize what I'm good at. I mean, I guess I didn't know that I could photograph people. I used to photograph trees and ruins, put them in glass. And, you know, you have to understand that these people are talking back to me and I'm talking to them at the same time. So it's really sort of like a movie shot. You know, I mean, these guys are, you have to motivate people and make them comfortable. And I turned out to be quite good at it. And that I'm very proud of the portraits that I got of all of our community. I'm very proud of some of these shots and glad and wish that I'd started earlier, honestly, you know, because of that I have missed that wouldn't be possible to go back to. So, but regardless, if anybody does want to do a GoFundMe, let me know. I think I said, again, I'll repeat it. My email is mary@maryvancline.com. This recording will go out and Erin will send a link to anybody that wants it for sure. And what I'd like to do from this Zoom is what Erin does best, is he gets people talking. He's basically a genius. And he has, every time I came to him with the project, he didn't say no. He goes, well, what about this? So he was great. And or is still great.
Thank you, Mary.
So that's what I'd like to do, is get a buzz going about what we can do to, I think it's actually, I mean, I hate to say this, but I think it's a bit of a rescue mission for the project. The files need to be managed and put into, a lot of them now are on external drives, which does extend their life. As I mentioned, everything's in a bank vault secure, but we're talking now, the last time anything was done on the project was November of 2019. So we're back. It's time to bring the project forefront and put it out there, honestly, before all of us forget who everybody is.
I gotta ask you, who are these people too? Mary, oh, she froze again. Very interesting concept. The idea of getting Mary the support is something that I think is important, because we definitely need to get, like you said, her vision was the photos. Now, how does it live beyond? Does anybody have any ideas? Feel free to mute yourself. It's be a good time to talk while Mary comes back online. Clifford or Mary or Steve, feel free to jump back in. Because I think
Lloyd Herman, he started.
Mary, start over again. You just came out of frozenness. I just threw it to you, and you were telling us who those people were.
That's me, and that's Lloyd Herman, who just recently passed away. You know, he started the Renwick Gallery. He started the Renwick Gallery. So he is someone we are very grateful for. And we're, of course, have sort of we did not touch him up and put makeup on him or hairspray. The guy on the right is the previous curator of the Tacoma Art Museum, who was also very helpful at the Seattle photo shoot.
And I believe the person on the left was an assistant, correct, Mary? She's going out again. Well, these are more people behind the scenes, obviously, that help Mary every single photo shoot when she could. And this is the only photo of Mary as well that is in the entire thing. This is the only photo she shot of herself. It's nice how you when Zoom freezes, you can't mute somebody. But Mary did have a publication of the project, Spring Glass Quarterly, which she has copies of that are available for sale. I believe you can get a copy of the full magazine and a copy of the article alone for $15, including shipping. She's holding it up right now in her photo. And I wanted to tell Mary a big thank you for joining us today for this Zoom. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's a possibility for purchase to help fund the project. now. So you can contact me or Mary. There's a lot of these pictures are available for sale. Should you want to get a picture of yourself, a picture of somebody else, Mary has them all, and it's a small amount of money to support the project, but the quality is great. You can get a certain piece with an actual camera. You see these cameras here. How does it work, Mary? Has a small little print that comes with it. Let me unmute you and see if you can tell us how the camera works for the glass piece. And then the small ones are available. The prints alone, 22 by 17 are $450, and 36 by 24 full color, which is a really nice size for $750. Mary, you're still muted. Could you unmute yourself? That would help out with talking about the cameras. There you go.
The prints are on archival watercolor paper. They're not a glossy photograph. They're beautiful prints. And the guy at the very beginning, Todd, is the one who worked with me on the prints and the digital files. The glass cameras were an idea that, believe it or not, I had 5 galleries at the very beginning who gave me brainstorming. And this was Bernadette Bender's idea to possibly, along with some other people, and then Kat Hartley, who was in the last picture, a huge part of the project behind the scenes. She's on the left there, Kat, with the red hair. She came up with these cameras, and because that's what I do, I put the images of the portraits on glass, fired them with high fire enamels, and then attached them to the back of the viewfinders of these awesome replicas, 2/3 size replica of Hasselblad and a Rolex camera. And I had collectors that would purchase the cameras with their portrait on them to support the project. So the way they did that was through sending their support through a nonprofit. And Aaron and I talked about encouraging another museum I talked to Tacoma the other day. They'd still do it, as well as we talked about possibly Fort Wayne or a museum in Michigan, so that the cameras are basically, your money goes to a nonprofit and it's tax deductible, which was also the collector's idea. So everyone thought of everything along the way and made this possible. So Aaron, back to you.
No problem. Thank you, Mary. So feel free to contact me if there's any photos that you heard of or think of or want to get a copy of. We can make this happen for you to raise funds for the project. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and thank you, Brel, for joining me today. And we're always looking for new ideas and new institutions or anything to continue this project as it takes back to life post-pandemic, because there's so many important people who've been recorded, including myself. You saw my photo. Thank you very much for taking me and Corey, Mary. It was a lot of fun. I love the picture of Ferd and Kathy. I might buy a print for them to put it on their wall, because they're just great people. So
I think you need a life-size image of you and Corey.
That's all we need, life size of my parents for sure. But thank you all of me. Thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate this. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit that bell, share this with people who are like-minded with us, because we really want to get the word out for the importance of this project as it continues in the future. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Mary, for joining me today, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.